Welcome to Citizens Climate Lobby's core volunteer training lesson tonight. My name is Brett Cease. I'm going to be your host, and our topic is engaging in grassroots outreach. First up tonight, we're going to have the wonderful Susan Adams, a dear friend of mine, and also the Third Coast Regional Coordinator, talk about tabling. Susan found her way to CCL in August of 2012 when her neighbor asked if she'd be interested in co-founding the first Austin chapter. And since then, Austin's been booming into 5 different diverse chapters. During her time as CCL volunteer before inhabiting the regional coordinator role, she served in many roles, including group leader, congressional liaison, media outreach coordinator, and constituent letter guru. So we're in good hands with Susan tonight. Just a little reminder, we've talked about our 5 levels of political will and the climate advocate training. Tonight's webinar is specifically going to be focusing on grassroots, right? One of the most effective ways that we can get congressional action active is if we actually voice our voices as constituents and highlight the concern throughout the whole district. So both of these tactics tonight are going to fall under that grassroots outreach lever. And our goals for tonight's presentation are pretty straightforward. We want to make sure afterwards that all attendees should be feeling prepared to start tabling at their local events to represent their CCL group and to really know where to locate to find all of these resources in community to get started. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it to you, Susan, and we'll run through the agenda of what, why, when, and where to table, preparing to table, tabling resources, connecting with people, and then jumping into a little practice.
The what, why, when, and where of tabling. Well, what is tabling? I mean, it's basically setting up a table at an event or in some heavily traveled spot in order to communicate, connect with folks, and engage them, and ideally get them to take a quick action. That's my favorite part of tabling. Why do we table? Well, it depends on the event. Some events you might table for different reasons from others, but in general, it is to educate citizens and to give them hope and to let them know what we're doing and that there are solutions to climate change and that they have a voice. I think that's a really powerful part of tabling, is to kind of demonstrate how empowered you are. Another thing is to enable citizens to take action, and this is one of my favorite parts of tabling, is to get folks to write a quick letter to their member of Congress, because I let them know that we use those letters during our lobbying meetings to kind of lobby on their behalf and to let the member of Congress know that there's the political will in district to act on climate change. Another important aspect of tabling is to find new volunteers, especially if you just started a chapter or you haven't yet started a chapter and are thinking about it. You can set up a table and have conversations, find some like-minded folks, and have a clipboard there for them to sign up on. And another great thing about tabling is you can use it for your own personal development. So it's a great training ground. It's a low risk, it really doesn't matter if you flub it up. You can practice using your laser talks. You can practice doing engaged and active listening. And so it's just a great opportunity for you to fine tune your talking points so that when you're in a lobby meeting with a member of Congress or with an editorial board or whomever, you sound a little bit more polished. And another wonderful part about tabling that I enjoyed this last weekend is that it helps develop and strengthen relationships between other CCL volunteers, because you guys get to hang out at the table and talk. So anyway, so that's what it's all about. When and where to table? Well, there are all kinds of places to table. Public events, there's a great one, like the library book fair, a local event, say like a farmer's market. Of course, Earth Day rally is like my very favorite tabling event of all time. You can, if you're in a town with a university, you can do it at a university related event. Often there are conferences if you're in a bigger town, so like look out for those. This is one of my favorites, is other groups events or creating your own events, like having a movie night. And then it's not really tabling so much as like writing letters on a table, but you can have a movie night, invite people over, ask them to write letters. Sometimes if there's a movie being shown, like Chasing Ice, for example, at a local new theater, you can have a panel discussion, and even in a chapter meeting. Just looking for any opportunity in your community that preparing to table. So what do you need? You don't really need that much, but before you begin, you need to get permission or register. So once you've identified a nice place to table, say a farmer's market, then you need to contact that farmer's market and see if you can be there. And some of these places will require you to register. It's always a good idea to let them know that you're with a 501c3 that you're a nonprofit, and then maybe you'll get a break in price. Then once you've gotten your permission, and you need to find out what is the size and dimension of your booth. Like, is there going to be a table? Will there be chairs provided? And not all places provide these things. So if you need to bring a table, it's good to know that in advance rather than showing up and not having a table, which I've done before, and it is much less fun. What sort of event is it? If it's outside, well, then you might want to think about bringing a shade tent, or you might want to bring some paperweights to keep your collateral, from flying away in the wind. Is there power supply? If you're interested in trying to sign people up at your table, like having a computer there where they can immediately join CCL, or if you want to be looking up their member of Congress or demonstrating the carbon fee and dividend calculator, then you might want power. Delegate responsibilities. And this is kind of key. Of course, if you are a group of one, then you can be responsible for all the things, but it's handy if you've got more folks to work with to have somebody that's in charge of coordinating the event. Make sure that you've got somebody who knows that they're in charge of setting it up. Make sure that you've got enough volunteers to cover it. It's not much fun to table all by yourself, so I would recommend always doing it at least as a pair. And then having somebody who's responsible for tearing down, cleanup, and making sure that all of the sign-up sheets and letters are taken home someplace. And then you need to have somebody afterwards who will process all of those things. So it's really awesome for Dallas this weekend. They got 500 letters, but now somebody has to go through all 500 letters and look up the member of Congress. So it's important to schedule that in and know that that's going to be a responsibility after the event. Tabling resources. So the stuff that you must have to table, it isn't actually that much. It's handy to print out some sign-up sheets, and we're going to be pointing you to those resources here in a bit. It's great to have clipboards. In fact, you don't even need a table sometimes. You can just bring a clipboard. For example, if I have a Girl Scout parents meeting, I love to harass them immediately with a clipboard with a letter on it. Oh, why don't you write a quick letter to your member of Congress? So clipboards are very critical. Pens, of course. Name tags are handy. That makes it easy for people to know who you are. And it's handy to have things like the informational call. It's like a little quarter-page flyer. Just a little quick handout. Some folks, when you approach them, will be like, maybe, but they'll want some more information to take away with them. And that's a small, quick, easy one. And then, of course, an action for people to take. As you might know, I am really kind of psychotic about collecting letters. And because it's just a really easy ask, most people are really happy to do it. So that's the action I usually have for people to take at a table. Nice to have. A banner is very, very nice to have. I would say it's almost essential to have. It's nice to have maybe a printout of your accomplishments. For example, it can really impress people to let them know that we've had, 75,000 letters written to members of Congress last year, CCL National, things like that. A call to action, stand-up frames, you name it. It's nice to have things displayed for people to look at. For handouts, we have great brochures. We have a really beautiful new brochure. You might want to have a stack of those. Fact sheets, dividends. Cookies are actually a very big favorite of mine. I love to use cookies at my booth because not only does it attract people, but I'll have a sign that's like, free cookie. It's a kind of bait and switch. Free cookie if you write a letter to your member of Congress. And so that way, I feel a little less shy about asking people to write a letter to Congress, and then they get something for their efforts. So that's kind of a cute thing to do. And it's good to have activities there. Like if you have a coloring book, for example, and somebody's got a kid, or if you have coloring pages, their child will be coloring away, they'll be busy, then you can talk to the parent, or you can have their parent write a letter. And then you can bundle up those adorable pictures and bring those to your member of Congress as well. So I think that's a fun thing to have. Et cetera, et cetera. Tablecloth, canopies, paperweights are very key, duct tape, clips, anything you can think of that you might need to glue things up or hold things down. Like a laptop or tablet, like we mentioned, some folks will set up a laptop that's playing we have a 2-minute carbon fee and dividend video, and they'll just play that in a loop, and folks kind of like to just watch that. And think about the occasion. For example, if you are at a science march, which we just had last weekend, you might have some collateral that's right around climate science, for example. This cute one, it's warming, it's us, we're sure, it's bad, we can fix it. So, think about the handouts that might be associated with the groups that you're tabling for. This is the ubiquitous Brett links slide. There's lots of resources on the community. There's a wonderful table at events page that kind of outlines all the steps. Here's a link to the sign-up sheet that you really should have at any tabling event where people can sign up for more information. The CCL constituent letter, which is just these letters to members of Congress that we'd love to have at tabling events. The new improved introductory call flyer, as well as our gorgeous new flyers, brochures, and those fact sheets. We also have links to the banners. So, all of these things you can, if you have a local print shop, you can send them there and have them printed. If not, there are online places where you can have the banners printed. It's all set up for you. So it's easy as pie. You just need, of course, money to do it. And on that front, I would suggest like passing a hat at group meetings so that you don't wind up paying for all these things because it can get expensive. CCL leaders letters. So that's endorsement letters, connecting with people. So this is one of the key parts of tabling. And I love this quote from Theodore Roosevelt: "Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care." And I think this is beautiful advice when you're tabling, is to be interested in the people coming to the table, not interesting. So you don't need to hit them with everything you've ever learned about. I mean, you're going to want to because you've been studying your laser talks, but you want to make it a positive experience for them. You want to listen more than you talk. You do need to prepare by reading up on some of the key laser talks, but you don't need to worry about it because this is not a test and you're just going to do your best and be yourself. Find your comfort zone and then just speak conversationally. One key thing is to not sit behind your table, but to stand, and even better yet, to get out in front of your table and mingle. I like to stand up in front of the table with my clipboard, with my letter on it. And, you can either reach out to people and talk about what we're about or about our nonpartisan approach, or you can just be like, hey, do you have time to write a quick sentence or two to your member of Congress about climate change? And then from there, the conversation gets rolling. And this is a really good point too, that sharing solutions is giving a gift of hope, a key to action, and is a path to a global solution. So you're going to find a lot of folks feel discouraged, and you're going to want to avoid the dire, frightening messaging about how bad climate change is. I mean, you can talk about that with them, but I think the idea here is that we're talking about solutions, and we're talking about the positives of carbon fee and dividend, that both parties can support it, that there are lots of great direct benefits, but there's also a lot of great indirect benefits, that it's simple, that it's fair, that it's global, that it's just a beautiful market-based solution. You can talk about how we offer all these great trainings and resources, because folks can sometimes feel a little intimidated. I'm sure you don't know that feeling, by all there is to know and learn, and just to let them know that CCL is there to support and help you, empower you. And then at the end of a tabling event, it's a great idea to debrief and review how it went. What worked, what didn't work, what might you do better next time? What did you forget to bring? What would it be nice to have at the next event? Key learnings. So practice. You can practice your carbon fee and dividend laser talk, look over the REMI report, review the CCL values that we're grassroots, nonpartisan, positive force for change, and then get your logistics covered. Make sure that you know who will be where, when, and that you have all the stuff. And when you get there, have fun, be conversational, be yourself. Don't freak out, it's no big deal. Connect on values, and that's the thing. That's part of being yourself. You're there for a reason. Other people are gonna connect with you for the same reasons, because we all share common values. And this is also very key, because what's the good in tabling if you don't follow up with all the people who signed up on your sign-in sheet? So follow up with potential recruits. And ideally, you would do that within the first 48 hours. I know that doesn't always work with life, but it's kind of nice to go while you're still fresh in their mind. Give them a call. Best, or email is better than nothing.
I'll be the passerby here, Susan, and you can just kind of introduce yourself here. So I'm just Joe Schmo, kind of walking through the farmer's market, and I'm stumbling across the CCL table here all of a sudden. Oh, okay. Hello.
Excellent. Hi, I'm Susan Adams. I'm a volunteer with our local group of Citizens Climate Lobby. What brought you out here today?
Oh, I'm just here with my family. We're looking forward to getting to know a lot of the other community events.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I'm out here because we've got a fair and bipartisan solution to address climate change. Would you like to hear anything about it?
Well, thank you for asking. That sounds actually pretty intriguing. Yeah, I'd love to.
Well, blah 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 blah. What do you think about that?
Thank you. Thank you for asking. I think that it's something that I don't know a lot about, and I'm always interested in finding out more. So you seem like you've got a pretty rational approach here, and I'd love to keep listening here.
Okay. Well, is climate change an issue that you're concerned about?
You know, it hasn't been until recently, but I've noticed a lot of changes even in our own community, and I guess I'm starting to look into it.
Well, since you're out here today, would you have time to take a quick moment to write a letter to your member of Congress about your concerns with climate change?
Yeah, I guess we don't have too much time, and the kids are pretty distractible here. But it looks like you've got a coloring book, and you know this is pretty well laid out. So why don't we just take a moment to try this out? Yeah,
I love it.
we didn't. The point is that you don't have to have a perfect scripted response. Susan demonstrated active listening, pivoting to make sure that their values and their story was really the emphasis of our conversation, and then invited them in with a quick action like you talked about. So you absolutely nailed it. And at this point, what we'll do here is just kind of pivot. We did that practice, and we can easily practice here at the end with the partner action too. But for now, let's just use either the chat window, or you can unmute yourself. And we'd love to hear questions and comments from everyone that's been calling in tonight, just about any of these questions or anything else you might like to kind of further elaborate on, because clearly we're giving you a pretty stylized scenario there, and we'd love to make sure to dive into anything that you really want to have a chance to talk about. And just close by saying thank you so much, Susan, for your expertise and your time. And we look forward to continuing to hear good things out of the wonderful Texas area due to your leadership.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a privilege and a pleasure.